This is one of the police officers. We're going to get his badge number. This is probably what he does. And this is the restaurant owner that came out. He's trying to go to the restaurant and eat. And the white lady over there in that white car by the CVS sign called the police on him and said that he looked at her suspiciously and she called the police on him. Oh, Jesus, they got the motorcycles. Oh my God.
Wow.
Wow, this is real. My God, we plead the blood of Jesus over him. This is stripping right here. I don't believe this.
Hi.
Hello. Let me get close. Black in America, Royal Oak, Michigan. He looks suspicious.
I guess what makes it so worse, I'm pretty sure if she would have did the same thing, now he would have let her go to me.
They pulled up on 20-year-old.
She doesn't even know me, but she's still out here standing with me.
This is the restaurant owner. She is not leaving his side.
So if someone calls about someone, we're not supposed to respond?
No, you are, but not the way you are, because even while if you're investigating the comment, as you pull up and you see, I'm not a threat to her. I'm not even close to her.
How do we know until we find out and talk to her?
Well, this is the thing. When he was pulling up, well, wait, let me finish. While he was pulling up, I'm walking in. I'm right here. So I'm not even close to her. So once you even see that, ma'am, I don't think he's even paying any attention.
I'm going to go over here and get this lady on camera.
Once he asks her, I told him to park my car. I'm getting out. I'm going to go eat. Am I free to go? Oh, you're expected.
They pulled up on the brother in Royal Oak, Michigan, because the Caucasian lady done called the police on him after he just walking down the street to meet his girlfriend at a restaurant. This is the restaurant owner. He's free to go. Woohoo! He's free. This is the restaurant owner.
If he's not being compliant, we still want to find out who the heck to talk to. You know what I'm saying? If someone calls.
Yeah, I get it.
Like,
But you got to understand. Okay, that's fine. She called because he's a black guy.
I don't know who called. It's all right.
The lady over there in that car, she called. Who's sitting over there hiding? This is awful.
You can come back and enjoy your food. Thank you guys so much.
We weren't leaving.
Okay? Like, that is totally messed up.
Totally
And
horrible.
If that were me walking across the street or walking in, this would not be happening because I was looking at her while I was trying to park. This would not be happening.
Somebody called about you.
No, I know that, but like to keep him.
I think you're inferring a lot, and you probably are too. You're inferring a hell of a lot.
No,
and you're implying a lot.
we are lit.
Okay.
The lady over there, she called.
It's the lady in the
The one hiding over there. Poor, he better run. The guy over there, he better run.
Actually, just trying to park his
You in the
car.
wrong neighborhood, brother.
How do we know that until we talk to
You're
anybody?
right. I understand that. But
Are we supposed to have all these facts?
This is the.
Let me just first start off by saying that this is not the entire video in which I'm discussing right now. This is just the part where they first confront this guy by the name of Devin Myers up until they start talking to that white woman who was I believe she was a manager at the restaurant that he was about to go into, and then it cuts off right there. The actual full video is about 14 minutes long, or 14 plus minutes long, and then all that really happens after it cuts off is that they're talking to her, and then his mother, I believe that's his mother, comes up, and then she starts talking to him as well. But I could only get this part of the video from YouTube. Now, if you go on other various social media platforms, you'll find the full video. But this right here, I could not avoid this one at all, even if I tried. Because, you know, I'm recording this now, and I know that many of my subscribers, by the time this video may get uploaded, they'll probably be flooding me with emails to talk about it. So basically, this happened in a place called Royal Oak, Michigan. And you have this 20-year-old man by the name of Devin Myers who was getting ready to go and get something to eat with his girlfriend when all of a sudden he had about 4 police cars just pull up on him. I'm talking about between the combination of cars and trucks, and I believe a motorcycle came up. Like, if you see something like that, you're wondering what in the world actually happened. Well, it turns out that when he was pulling into the parking lot of the restaurant, he kind of glanced over at this white woman who was in her car. And the white woman called the police on him because she claims that he stared at her suspiciously. She claims he gave her this suspicious stare. And this doesn't surprise me because if y'all remember, and I'm going to come back to this, but I'm about to bring up a point. If y'all remember back a couple years ago in Florida, there was a black guy down there who got charged with something called giving domineering stares or something like that. I will never forget it. And I think he was doing that to a white guy, and he wasn't even giving him no stare. But you know, a lot of black people, we have a common, like, one thing that's commonplace with a lot of us, we know how to mean mug. And a lot of times we're not even being mean. It's just that that's our natural face. Most women will call it resting bitch face. Like, it's just a regular serious face that we have unless it's somebody we know, then we'll like throw on a smile or a laugh or a chuckle. But if we don't know you, it's kind of like one of those. But he got hit with something called a domineering stare. And I noticed that they do this because it adds on to the whole black boogeyman or black boogie person situation that they, or the narrative that they've come up with to label us. So this woman claims that this 20-year-old man gave her a suspicious look. I immediately thought of EMMITT Till. It like literally, it felt like the 1955 all over again down in Mississippi with EMMITT Till and what happened with him. Because, you know, back then, ADOS people were not supposed to be looking at white people in the face. We had to always look the other way, or we had to look down or somewhere that was not in the eyes, because we were seen as less than a human. And, you know, they only gave human privileges to people who look like them, and only they could look them in the eye. All the way back to like when, you know, you had people who had to work as butlers and maids inside of their homes. They could only, like, they couldn't really look them in the eye. Like, even when they was like, say that you had a function and you had a maid that had to pour the drinks, she had to look directly at the cup as she was pouring. She couldn't look the people in the eye as she was doing it, even if it meant that she wasn't going to miss the drink going into the glass and then move back to her place. Same thing with the butlers. They had to come in, that they had to serve. They had to make sure that they just looked at the plate going onto the table and go back to their spot. They were not allowed to look them in the eye because they thought very low of us, that we were supposed to be seen as, shoot, less than a human. I mean, look at that 3/5 compromise. It's still there. The part that says that ADOS is 3/5 of a human being. That part right there. But she says that he gave her suspicious stares. She calls the police on him, and the police actually showed up for that. Now, it makes you wonder, what did she exactly say to the police during their conversation? It makes you wonder, what did she say? Sorry, I had to pause the recording right quick. So they basically just came up there because she called. Like I said, you don't know what she said in that conversation, and they just came up. I think she probably embellished. I'm almost 100% certain that she did embellish what happened that made them to come up there and confront him. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to read this entire article that's coming from heavy.com. This is not the 5 facts thing that they usually do, but I usually don't read the full article coming from Heavy. However, in this case, I am willing to make an exception. So it says, in a lengthy and narrated Facebook Live video taken in Royal Oak, Michigan, Tuesday, a young black man is seen being detained by several police officers, one whose patrol car is pulled up on the curb after a white woman called 911 to report him as suspicious, alleging he stared at her. They pulled up for that. This goes back to last year when you had all those palm colored individuals calling the cops on black people for the most ridiculous things. This one right here almost topples a lot of those that occurred last year. Devin Myers, age 20, tells the responding supervisor that the woman called police saying, "There's a guy staring at me. I'm threatened. I'm scared." That's all they had to hear. That's all they had to hear. I'm threatened and I'm scared. And the fact that she's a white woman, that's all they needed to hear for them to throw on their cape, their Save a White Woman cape, and fly down there like they were Superman and come in and try to save her. This is the stuff right here that got a lot of ADOS men hemmed up back in the day because of their lies or their embellishments. While it's difficult to catch all of what Myers said as the live video is being narrated, he can be heard saying that he was walking from his car, going to the in-season cafe restaurant where his girlfriend was waiting for him to dine, when several police officers pulled up saying they had a report that he quote unquote looked suspicious. What makes it worse, he tells the officer, is that if it had been a white lady, I'm pretty sure you would have just let her go eat. After more than 30 minutes, police let him go. Heavy contacted Royal Oak Police Department spokesman Lieutenant Keith Spencer for comment. When that request is returned, if it is, the story will be updated. Now is getting ready to go into the meat of this story. After asking that a police supervisor be called as he was questioned and held by at least 2 police officers, a supervisor on a motorcycle rolls up. He begins to argue that police are just doing their job, addressing Myers. Witness Kamiko Adolph, who I'm going to talk about in a little bit. She was the one that recorded the video. The woman recording, and in-season cafe manager Aaron Fry, who never left Myers' side. The supervisor says, so if someone calls about someone, we're not supposed to respond? No, you are, but not the way you are. If you pull up and you see I'm not a threat to her, I'm not even close to her. The officer interrupts. How do we know until we talk to her? He asks. In the 14-minute video of the incident, police are never seen going to the white vehicle parked across the street that contains the woman who allegedly phoned the police to begin with. And as you saw in the video, they never did. And you can, if you look at the video, you can see the car. Like now the person recording, she didn't zoom in for you to actually get a good look at the car. But if you look at the video, when she mentions the car, you can look at it and it stands out like a sore thumb. Like a white car will really stand out unless it's in a parking lot filled with other white cars. Myers said that as police pulled up on him, he was walking to the restaurant and nowhere near the car parked across the street where he'd parked. And as is seen and heard in the video, the manager of the restaurant In-Season Cafe stands by the entire time as police question Myers, who was about to enter the restaurant for lunch. Cafe manager Fry repeatedly tells the police that Myers was no threat and that the response was inappropriate. She doesn't even know me, but she's still out here standing with me, Myers says of Fry. Police say he can go. Now, how much you want to bet that the reason why they let him go is because the manager was out there with him? The manager was the white woman that you saw in the video. Now, the black woman who was recording this thing the whole time was not about to let him go even with her around. What does that tell you? It says Heavy reached out to Myers via Facebook for comment. If that request is returned, the story will be updated. Now it's about to get into the part about the Kamiko Adolph character woman who recorded the incident. Kamiko Adolph, who recorded the incident, told Heavy that she witnessed and why she began recording, and said that the woman had been in the restaurant before calling the police on Myers. Adolph said as a black mother of 3 black sons, she was scared for Myers and went outside to be with him and recorded what's happening. That was quick thinking on her part. I went out with him because he was surrounded by all whites and alone, she said, adding that police had already had Myers on the sidewalk for 10 to 20 minutes prior. She said when more officers arrived and she learned why he was being held, she left the restaurant where she had been eating to record. Myers' girlfriend was sitting next to Adolph. She was scared because she had no idea this was happening, as he had dropped her off at the door and was waiting for him inside. Had no idea. It was scary because I have 3 black sons. It's scary to think you can't look at someone in passing, she said. When recording, she said she heard police asking for his info and asking, why was he over there, on and on. I felt I felt he could have been arrested and did not know how young he was till I got there and asked, and I was even more upset. Adolf said she had seen the white woman who called the police. She was in the restaurant sitting behind me and with maybe her son. They paid and he left, and she left the opposite way, obviously running into Devin, who was coming towards the restaurant. So the white woman was already there and she was leaving the restaurant. Adolf said that people never talked to her. She stayed and drove off after he was free to go. So she was standing there to look and see if anything would happen, and she was banking that something would happen. I bet you she probably would have had a huge grin on her face if she saw this. Let me take you a little trip back. Back then, whenever police accosted a ADOS person, Palm Color would stand around to get a good laugh and see everything that went down. Just like when they used to have those quote unquote picnics. I don't have to go into the history of that. Y'all already know what it is if you know your history. They used to enjoy seeing that. I bet you this is not the first time she's done this. I'm willing to bet it cannot be. It says she stayed and drove off after he was free. I'm thinking probably waiting for something to happen so she could feel justified. When asked about the police supervisor's attitude toward her and Fry, she said the supervisor said we were interfering and did not know the whole story. But she said she and other witnesses, including Fry, had seen exactly what occurred. She said first, there were two officers who held Myers. And after several minutes of their questioning, Myers asked that a supervisor be called. He said he did not do anything. Call your supervisor. Now is about to come into the part where we discuss the Aaron Fry woman, the white supervisor of the restaurant. Fry is the general manager and stockholder of In Season, a near 4-decade gourmet vegan and vegetarian cafe in the Metro Detroit area. Some are calling Fry an ally, as she refused to leave the scene and intervene on Myers' behalf, never having met him. And her restaurant has been getting a lot of love online for Fry's response to the incident. In the video, she can be heard saying she understands that police need to respond to calls, but that in this case, she believed the woman called because he's a black guy. That was totally messed up. If that were me walking across the street and walking in, this would not be happening because I was looking at her while I was trying to park. The officer interrupts again, saying, I think you're interfering a lot, and you probably are too. You're interfering a hell of a lot. Now, this is what they're telling her. They keep telling her that she's interfering. Because, see, they don't like the fact that they are interrupting what could possibly have led to something much more drastic. That's one thing these palm colored cops do not like. They do not like having people interfering with their version of police business. And when I say their version, I'm talking about incidents like these. They probably wanted to mess this guy up so bad, but they couldn't because you had the woman recording and then you had the other woman who was the manager there literally like on their neck. And this is another reason why some places want to outlaw and make illegal of recording police interactions with civilians. If they could outlaw that, if that was to be outlawed, it would have been real messy that day. The officer says who called, and the woman in the white vehicle parked across the street is identified. He ignores it. Fry says she saw Myers and all he was doing was actually just trying to park his car. She says the whole incident has lasted so long, as the officer calls it, nonsense. He says all Myers had to do was say that he was just parking his car, minding his own business. Now, why does he have to do all of that? Like, no, let me keep going. He did repeatedly, the officer was told, but was nonetheless held by several officers, despite having said he had done nothing wrong and had just been parking his car to go eat in the cafe. When they kept him surrounded on the street, he asked for a supervisor, Fry said. This poor guy just wanted to get something to eat. Heavy reached out to All Season Cafe and was told Fry, the general cafe manager, was the person who stayed with Myers. Heavy asked for a comment from Fry, and if that request is returned, the story will then be updated. Well, first I do have to give kudos to the woman recording and also to the manager for actually staying out there and being on this guy's side. Because if they weren't there, this could have led into a whole nother can of worms that could have literally opened up. And they should have, if they were actual, you know, I'm just calling them what they are, a bunch of rent-a-cops. They're wearing a damn costume. If they did what they were supposed to do, they would have went over there and they would have questioned that old dingbat in the car that got upset because she says this man looked at her suspicious. I bet you she was one of them women that probably walked across the street whenever she saw one ADOS person walking toward her. She was probably one of them type of people, clutching her invisible pearls and having that look on her face like, oh my God. You know, like how like a lot of white women be doing, being all dramatic when they see one or two black ADOS people, especially if they're men, because of things they've been told, quote unquote, about us. But yeah, this whole thing was ridiculous. And if I were him, I would find a way to sue that department. The fact they even responded to that for a stare, really, that's a charge now. So to all the ADOS people out there listening, y'all bet not go be staring at no white folks now. They gonna call the police on you and say that you stared at them suspiciously. Although with all these mass shootings right now going on and all of them being palm colored for the most part, they all deserve to be looked at with some suspicion. I don't give a damn if it's a man, woman, boy, girl, hell, the toddler too. That's probably why he looked at her with suspicion. He probably thought she was going to shoot up the place. I don't know. And he's just like, maybe he was just standing on guard. But yeah, this is going to be a day he'll never forget. But I'm glad that he's safe. And, you know, everything is everything's not really smooth over. If he's never experienced this before, this was his wake up call right here. He's young and he's 20. So, you know, this is his first ride at the rodeo. I'm not sure. But yeah, this definitely happened because he is who he is. He's ADOS. And they had to make sure to protect that white woman with all their might. But like I said, the fact they even responded to that, I wonder what the charges would have been. That's what I'm trying to figure out, because last time I checked, staring is not a crime. Leave it up to them, though. They'll probably make it one. But yeah, staring is not a crime. It's not a felony. It's not a misdemeanor. But the way that they played this up, you would think that this guy was trying to rob her. That's why I'm curious as to what the fuck she said on that call when she called them. Because I do not want to believe it happens because with how they did last year. But hypothetically saying, I would not want to believe that they actually came all the way out there because this man was staring at her at what she describes as suspiciously or with suspicion. But this is just another day, you know, for us ADOS individuals, especially us men who got to deal with this crap.